Juice thing on there, we paying.
He's old school. Oh, yeah. We hired him in the early '80s.
Hey, Frank? Yvonne. Each one. Do you want one of these? Would you mind handing this to?
Good, and you, Harvey?
Okay, we start every meeting with prayer and a pledge. If you would stand with us, please. Let's pray. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day and the blessings you provided. Father, we thank you for our town, for those that choose to live here, those that choose to do business. Father, and I thank you for this board. Just ask you to watch over us, guide us, and help us make the best decisions we can. Help us to be mindful and do the best in everything that we do. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Okay. We can establish a quorum. All are present and accounted for. First item of business is to approve and set the agenda for the evening. Have a motion to review the agenda for approval.
Make a motion to review.
Have a motion by Vice Mayor Sutton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yes, with that,
Okay, so I've got a second by Alderman Cates. Yes, sir.
under discussion, I would like to add, we add, to the, discussion, classes, MTS, classes to discussing, when they'll start back up.
So, MTAS classes or board education.
Correct.
Okay?
I would also like to add an item to hire a town manager.
Okay. So we've got a discussion item for MTask or board discussion. I've got one to hire town manager administrator. Okay. I would ask that the board consider, there's been a request to remove Resolution 2053, which is a development contract. And I would also ask that the board would add, under new business, the hiring of a new police officer. So can I have a motion to amend the agenda that was presented?
So move.
Motion by Alderman Duncan. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Rector. Is any discussion needed on the items that have been added? All in favor of accepting the amended agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda has been set. We can continue forward. Next would be the reading and corrections for approval of the minutes. Have a motion to review the minutes from the July regular meeting for approval.
Make a motion to hear.
Have a motion by Alderman Cates. Do I have a second? Second by Alderman Rector. Any discussion necessary on the minutes?
Call for a vote.
Call for a vote by Vice Mayor Sutton. All in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next would be minutes from the special call meeting July 30th. Can I have a motion to review the minutes from July 30th special call meeting?
Make a motion.
Motion by Vice Mayor Sutton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Duncan. Any discussion?
Call for a vote.
All right, call for a vote by Alderman Cates. All in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, continuing forward would be the minutes from special call meeting of August 13th. Can I have a motion to review for approval the minutes from the August 13th special call meeting? Motion by Alderman Rector. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Sutton. Any discussion? Are we prepared to vote?
Yes, sir.
All in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll continue forward. Next is time for citizens' comments. If you care to make a comment, please step forward, state your name, where you live, and there is a 3-minute limit for each citizen.
My name is Mike Brown, 95 Muirfield Drive, Oakland, Tennessee. I have 2 questions for the city council and the mayor tonight. First one is, last meeting, we discussed a pumping station that was broke down. And you indicated that there would have been no damage or no inconvenience to the citizens, which is true. But there was an inconvenience in the fact that it cost money to fix. I would like to know how much it costs to repair this station. I would also like to know why there's not been devices placed on those stations to let you, as a warning when something goes wrong. That's my first question. My second question is, I've been coming to these meetings for quite a while, and I noticed those copy machines are still sitting out in the hallway. What was the final resolution of the copy contract that was discussed earlier in the winter?
Okay.
That's my 2 questions.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else care to be heard this evening?
Yeah, I'm Scott Bradford, and I live at 7 South Wind Drive, right back here in the Subdivision South Wind. And, hey, Frank.
Hey.
Chris, how you doing? I came and talked to the mayor, my wife and I did back, I think January, February, about the paving of, South Wind Drive. The subdivision was finished, and they stopped the paving. And then the houses that we're in are new, some old, but never got paid. And it is in really bad shape. And so is Burrell. Burrell leading to Southwind. There is a trucking company that's back there. And they come through there, that S-turn, and everybody has got a story about that. You know, either the truck almost ran them off the road, almost got hit, and the road is unsafe. Huge potholes. I've got some pictures. You know, I know you said 3 minutes, but I've also got a petition from the homeowners through the area that never got paid. And when the new pave starts, it looks nice. You know, clean. We've got gravel. That road is just coming apart. You can get your hand and just fill it with pea gravel. It's in our gutter system. Okay, and of course, Chris, you had thought that maybe July would be a reasonable time. I know COVID hit and everything was crazy. But we never heard back. And I came and saw you again, remember, a couple weeks ago?
You did.
And stressed my opinion on it again. Some of the residents wanted to come tonight, but you know how sometimes they get cold feet, you know, and they just don't want to do it, you know. So I'm kind of standing here for everybody. But even the people that live back in the paved area are upset because they have to drive through that area to get back.
understand, sir. I'm sorry, but your 3 minutes have exceeded.
Yeah, okay, 3 minutes. All right, what can I get from y'all? And I know that what is an answer from any?
We'll address it during discussion, sir. This is just for the citizens to comment, and then...
I'm new to this.
No problem. No, that's why I'm explaining. You're good.
Okay,
All right. Thank you.
thank y'all.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to speak this evening? Okay. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and continue forward. Again, next on the item on the agenda is communications from the mayor, and it's good to see the room full. I know there's lots of different reasons it's here. I appreciate you coming out in the current environment we're in. I will let you know that this room is disinfected after each meeting. So before you came in, it was disinfected this morning because we had court yesterday. So we're trying hard to maintain our process. Do want to acknowledge that the Fayette County kids have started back to school. They are going virtual, and our heart goes out to the kids and the parents. This is something brand new. So hope we can all have lots of patience and understanding as parents are in Walmart frazzled and just taking a little extra time because it is a very different world we live in. So I would ask us to continue to be patient and look through that. Addressing some of the questions that citizens raised tonight. As far as the pumping station, it has been fixed. I mean, those things do go down from time to time. I cannot give you the costs off the top of my head, to be quite honest with you. You can go through a public records request. We can get you that information. I'll be glad to tell you. I just don't have it with me at this point. As far as the device to identify when it goes down, that's something that the cost will require it to be bid out, and it will take some time to get that done. But we are working towards that. And again, unfortunately, that's not going to stop them from not working or from breaking down, but that will identify it quicker in the process so that we can get down. I will make sure that citizens know that those pumping stations, there's a couple of men in public works that's their job, is to maintain those and check them on a regular basis. But it is a mechanical device, and there's a lot of stuff going through it, so they do break down. But we try hard to keep them maintained so that doesn't happen. As far as the copier setting in the hall, there has been another contract for copiers that the town is using, and currently that contract is in dispute, and the attorney is reviewing some information that has recently been provided to him, and so we're hoping to get this resolved soon. But at this point, it's a legal matter, and won't be able to discuss it any further, but I assure you that it is being discussed. The board has discussed it, and there's information to the attorney. As far as Scott that was just here, I'm not sure if he left or not, but actually his area in the subdivision was the first one that had the second coat put on it, so it has had that second coat. The asphalt does have some gravel coming up from it, and we've been out and looked at it several times. Those with a lot more road experience than myself have looked at it. Can tell you that morale is an issue, and it is on the maintenance list that we will be addressing soon to get that taken care of. So, so the citizens know we spend anywhere from over the last 5 years $400,000 to $600,000 this year, potentially even more, to repair roads. Unfortunately, there will be some wear and tear, and for a small town with a low property tax rate, they're not all going to be 100%. I wish they were, but we do our best to keep them functioning, and we have brought some things in-house in order to patch them and move them quicker. So I assure the citizens that we're doing our best, and we are working towards continuing to maintain them. Our annual maintenance program, along with what we do on a regular basis, is something that was instituted or implemented, I guess, about 7 years ago, that had never been in the town. So we are making strides. So with that, you've heard me speak enough at this point. I'll go ahead and move forward. And the next item on the agenda would be the department heads. So the first would be code and planning. Mr. Owens is off tonight, so he has one of his code enforcement officers, Mr. Quinn, will be presenting his report this evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, July, we had 56 building permits, 26 new home, of which 26 were new home permits, 2 pergola, 1 carport, 6 pool permits, and 14 fence permits. Peddler permit, 3 sign permits, and 3 storage buildings. 35 plumbing permits, 22 mechanical permits, 1 planning application, 31 reinspection fees, 5 BZA applications, and 1 DRC application. Report breakdown for July of 2020 were 33 site inspections, 31 rough end plumbing inspections, 30 sewer inspections, 17 sheathing inspections, 20 hold down inspections, 1 footing inspection, 1 demolition inspection, 23 brick ties, 29 top out inspections, 33 rough and gas, 31 mechanical temperature inspections, 45 framing inspections, 25 final plumbing inspections, 24 final gas inspections, 24 final mechanical inspections, and 66 certificate of occupancies. We had 34 vehicles with trailers parked in yard issues, 36 trailers parked in driveway and street issues, 35 boat and RV issues, 45 grass issues, 6 sign issues, 2 junk vehicle issues, 1 basketball goal and a right-of-way issue, 24 mud in the street silt fence issues, 21 trash issues, 6 cars, no tags issues, 111 notices were issued, 79 came into compliance, and 51 violations were observed.
I had a question for Walter, but he ain't here. You might know. The last 2 months, I brought that grass up on Windy Cove between Southwind and that trucking company. I know it's been brought up 2 months. I went over there just before I came to the meeting. It's still not cut. So how long does it take to get that cut? It's been 60 days, I know for sure.
I personally, there's a process that we have to go through, give them a first notice, final notice. I do not know, I'm not handling that particular, so I can't tell you where it stands. We've sent them a letter to either cut the grass or that the city will cut it.
But it don't take 60 days, right?
The first notice is 5 days, second notice is 5 days, and then a letter, which is 13 days less holidays and weekends.
So I know for a fact I brought it up the last 2 months, and it's still not
I
cut.
was not here at that meeting, I'm not aware of it.
I'm not saying, I had that question for Walter, because I talked to him personally about it at the meetings.
I'll be happy to find out about it.
I
but
appreciate
I
it.
cannot give you an answer on it.
Thank you.
All right?
Mr. Quinn, if you wouldn't mind, as you find out about it, email me and I'll distribute it to the board, please.
This is the Darrell Beard
I
property.
reckon
we're talking
it's in, right at the end of Windy Cove in Southwind. First cove back to the
about.
left.
I think Darrell Beard owns that big lot back there.
I noticed where maybe somebody that owned one of those houses had cut a strip of it, I guess just to keep it away from the house. It's almost tall as my head.
Would that factory be considered part of that property where he was talking about the trucks go?
I do not believe so. I believe that's 2 separate pieces of property.
Do you think, is that factory in the town of Oakland?
It's in the county.
It's in the county.
Yes, sir.
So we should be able to put a no truck sign up there and make him go around and not tear up Murrell anymore and give them people that problem on that road. If that's in the county, let's get some signage out there. And we'll talk to Harvey about that, I guess, when he gets up here. But if that's in the county, he has no business on that little road right there terrorizing citizens. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for Mr. Quinn? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next item would be Public Works. Mr. Ellis?
Good evening, gentlemen. Hope you're well.
Good evening.
Try to be brief. I know we have a long agenda. Look at the report there. We treated $43.9 million of wastewater 23 new utility taps, 256 locate requests were done. We sent out 871 late notices, and we only had to do 55 cutoffs. And we also treated 23.7 million gallons of drinking water. Wanted to notify the board that we will have a bid opening on Tuesday, the 25th, here at 2 o'clock for a air handling unit in one of the buildings at the wastewater treatment plant. Not sure how that's gonna go, not sure how many bidders we have. Everyone seems to be covered up with all they can do, so we'll see Tuesday how that comes out.
Is that just coming Tuesday?
Yes, 2 o'clock.
You said 23.7 of drinking water, but you meant wastewater, didn't you?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry, you're right. I put those numbers there. Lastly, I want to publicly thank all the hardworking men and women in the water, wastewater, and public works department, city hall. These men and women work hard every day. This has been the last 2 to 3 months, a tremendous amount of growth in the town, tremendous amount of maintenance issues. And I just want to commend them for the hard work they do every day. And lastly, I'll answer any questions or try to.
Mr. Ellis, on them working, did you recall off the top of your head, in the last 2 months, they've probably worked, what, 5, 6 nights well after 10 o'clock? I mean, just to show, I mean, not including the weekend days and the other times, but for a small crew, small staff, and to continue to work, that is incredible.
They're stretched in, and they do. Anytime I call or anybody calls, we do the best we can, and just want to commend them again, and I appreciate everything they do.
I want to commend them too, because I actually go when I know it's a problem, and I go to that site and see what's going on. And on this force main, this up there in front of Kroger, main water line, they were down there, and that hole, they had to go so deep and go down there. That ground was actually cracking, and it looked like they were gonna cave in. And we didn't have the equipment at Oakland to fix that. And they got on the phone, and Harvey got a contractor out there, and they had it fixed by noon the next day. And luckily, there wasn't, I believe, but one resident that was out of water, and of course, 2 businesses, I think, that they had everybody up and running, but those 2 before they fixed it. But I want to commend them also for their work. And I'm going to tell you, it may look like a lot of people standing around, but when they get to a certain point on this stuff, it takes every one of them to make it happen. And I saw some posts on social media about how many does it take to fix it, and a lot of people standing around. But I assure you that those guys all have a role to play when something's being fixed. There was also, for the record, let me tell you this, that there's more people involved in a situation than our water department when that happens. So when something like that happens, Harvey has to contact all the other utility companies. So you've got electrical companies, you've got cable companies, different ones, Comcast, AT&T, and you've also got Somerset Gas, and there's a lot of people that have a vested interest. So when you look up there and see 15 people, all of them don't work for the town of Oakland. Some of them work for other utility companies that have a vested interest in what's going on at that site.
If I could add a little bit too, I also want to thank Chickasaw Electric. They donated a flashing arrow sign, so we had to shut down one lane in 64, and the town of Somerville donated some materials. Thanks to them. That fixed the problem.
I do have a few questions. The mayor stated that pumping station off of that neighborhood had been repaired. I was up there yesterday, and I saw we still had a rented pump up there and another small pump that looks like it may be ours, and I was back there a few days ago, and they were still running. So has that been repaired?
No, sir, not completely.
How far are we away from that being repaired?
Probably 6 weeks. There's quite a bit of components. We've already had some replaced, rework, trying to work it out to get we're into the electrical controls now. That's the only thing that's holding us up. So I'm trying to get a list of components and then get pricing from different vendors.
Can you give me an estimate on what you think we spent so far?
It would be a rough estimate. I'm going to say 10,000.
You got a good price on that pump.
No, and again, on that station, I'll give you guys a report in more detail later, but I could go back to.
I'm not talking about the fix,
Okay.
just fixing of the pump. I'm talking about the transportation, all those trucks running in and out of there, hauling it off. You're thinking that's gonna fall in the $10,000 range?
The trucks were about 5,000, and the rental on the pump is probably 3,800 a month, so we may be close to 15.
All that electrical stuff is down underground where it got wet, right?
All that has to be upgraded, replaced, yes.
Is there not any way to bring that to the top of the ground?
We can, yes.
On that safety concern on Murrell, does the board agree that we can keep those trucks off that road? It's in,
I already brought that up last year. We made a discussion during the paving last year. And I believe, Mayor, I don't want to throw you on the bus, but I believe you were gonna check into that to see if it was feasible to get them to come out by the steakhouse on 64 instead of coming around Merle Street.
well, if we put signage there and make it illegal for them,
Then they would have to.
then they could get some tickets that would encourage them to take that different route. So are we in agreement that that signage should occur?
I agree.
How long does it take to get a sign up?
If I could interject, I want to defer to Mr. Tate. I believe that property is in the city and it's known industrial light industry.
We could still zone that road and make them go around them, couldn't we? We could still put a sign up.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pate, you wanna come in here and give us an answer on
I
this?
don't think he heard you.
What's your opinion on that, Mr. Minor? Is that legal?
I know in the past we've talked about putting weight limit signs, restrictions on the roads, and again, I have to defer to Walter who's not here, but that entails quite a bit more to be able to enforce that. You have to have scales and have calibration. There's a little more to it than just putting up a sign and enforcing it. Mr. Pate, they were asking was the warehouse off Merle Street in the city or out of the city. I told them that my recollection was it was in the city in the zone light industry.
Yes, sir.
How far out?
It's called Whitley Lane or Way, but again, I haven't looked at that area of town in more than 10 years probably. I mean,
They were
for
concerned about,
research
they
purposes.
were concerned about this.
Well, they just put in a new subdivision right there, Mr. Pate.
Southwind.
That, not at
At the back
Southwind,
of-
right before you get to
Yeah, right
Southwind,
there.
you looked at that, didn't you?
Yes, sir. But I didn't look at the industrial and I didn't look at the city limits.
Yeah, you could throw a rock right there.
Okay.
So other words, is you think the north end being the town and the south end in the county?
I don't speculate without looking at the map, so I can get back with you.
If I would ask the board, allow us to get the specifics of what's in and what's out, as well as have Attorney Minor look at a couple issues, and if the board wants to put up no truck signs, then let us do the homework first, and if we can, we'll communicate to the board and get those up. If we can't, we'll communicate back why we can't. And it's part of the minute, so it'll come up on the to-do, so we'll make sure it gets done.
Thank you, Harvey.
Anything else for Mr. Ellis this evening?
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, next will be Parks and Rec. Mr. Mullins?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Soccer registration was set in last Friday. We have been still taking registrations throughout this week. We'll probably end up extending it a little bit, probably another week or so. As of today, our plan for the soccer season was to have our first games played on 9/12 and the season go through 10/10. But we would like to give our teams at least 2 weeks worth of practice. So we're still, once registration is completely done, and we'll see kind of where we reevaluate where we're at the end of the week, and we'll know if we will be able to move forward as far as what we had originally planned on that start date of 9/12. Flag football registration is currently open until 9/11. As of today, we plan to play games on October the 17th through the November the 7th. Again, these dates are subject to change as we're dealing obviously with the pandemic. The walking shoulder paving project, at the time of this report, the only part that had been completed was Northwoods Park, but as of this week, all of them have been completed with the repaving project. Any questions tonight?
Yeah, how many did you have sign up for soccer?
Right now, we're at about 114 registrations, which if you break that down based upon the amount of players, some age groups, we don't even have enough to do teams yet. That's why we're trying to extend it some more. And I've also got a certain amount of people that said they don't plan to sign up because of the risk of the virus.
All right, anything else for Mr. Mullins this evening? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I do have a question. How many is on a team now?
We, depending on what age groups, like the older age groups, we play 11 on 11. I think one group is about 2 players away from having at least 2 teams, and then the other group is probably another 5 players away. So if we can try to get a couple more players, then we would have at least enough for 2 teams, but
Well, you could always reduce the amount of people on a team and shorten the field. It's that, but I'd like to see the ones that wanna play get to play.
Yes, we're looking at all aspects of it, but once we get our final numbers in next week, then we'll know kind of which way to go.
And I will caution the board, along with that, we're looking, as the schools have gone back in, some are meeting in school and some are virtual. Those that are meeting in school, we're monitoring what's going on with the pandemic. And if we find out that there's a rash or breakout there, and the state has any different stance, it is possible that we could delay the season till spring for that reason. So there's a lot of things that Parks and Rec are monitoring, but just so the board is aware, and we'll communicate with you that if anything turns upside down, we will not put anyone at risk.
But at this time, the governor's left it up to the counties and municipalities.
Correct.
There's nothing in the county that says they can't play, is it? Under this order?
Not currently, no.
And I think the numbers have went significantly down, haven't they?
Well, and again, we're not saying that, we're watching, and the numbers have stabilized, and we're wanting to play. I mean, Mr. Mullins and I've had this conversation more than once, but we do want to be aware we're not just gonna run out and play if the schools are closing down, that things are happening. And trust me, we'd much rather see our kids out playing soccer and running up and down the field and, you know, spending the first 7 hours a day on the computer doing schoolwork and the next 7 doing what kids do this day and time.
Well, believe me, I've got one at home right now doing this online school, and I'm about ready to go outside and play, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mullins.
Thank you, Brandon.
All right, next would be the fire department. Chief Walls is on vacation this week, so Fire Officer Hathcock will be presenting his report this evening. Sir?
Captain,
How you?
how you?
We had 130 calls for the month. 2 of those were house fires inside the city. Both of those were on the scene within 4 minutes.
That's all the report this evening.
Medical calls, assistant calls, see false marks, do smoke detectors, malfunctions,
Okay. Any questions for Officer Hathcock this evening? Thank you, sir.
Tell Chief Walls, thank you for putting this stuff together that we asked for. On the burn and the COVID work policy, workplace safety policy.
I'll pass them on to them. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Sutton, I appreciate you saying that, and I do want to take this opportunity to make sure the citizens know we had some issues at a development with burning, and the fire department provides burn permits, and because of the density in Oakland is becoming more and more of an issue, so they have actually taken and looked at some other areas and come up with some burn policies that will make sure that those citizens that live around it have some relief. So if you were involved in that, if you had issues with that, know that it has been addressed, and you will see across the town a big difference from this point forward. All right, next would be the police department. Chief Earl.
These are the stats from July 13th through August 9th. We had 308 citations given, 109 warnings, 14 offense reports, 3 arrests, 228 calls for service. Only other thing that I was going to mention, we had a car that was stolen a couple of weeks ago and recovered yesterday in Shelby County. A couple of individuals were arrested. And I guess is it Vivian, whatever this alarm company is that's going door to door? Got a lot of calls from them, so we've advised them and they keep coming out here. They don't have a permit. So I don't know how y'all wanna handle that.
I think what we're gonna have to do is do something to help y'all, because y'all got more to do than running down people illegally soliciting in Oakland. And I think we're gonna have to pass some legislation to where if y'all catch them once and tell them to get one, and we have another complaint on them, and we go again, that we revoke their privilege to be in this town and make some arrests. maybe when, they have to pay, they'll, but just suspend them. I think that we're gonna have to do something like that.
Yeah, we probably got 4 or 5 calls on them. I think we issued citation, but they just keep coming back, so.
It's different companies too, they just keep adding. It's worse right now, and I've seen it since I've been out here.
Right. That's all I got, unless you have any questions.
You all will start, opening back up, allowing the, people to come in to, pay their, tickets,
Not yet.
not,
No, we
not yet, just,
No, they have to,
still put them in the,
drop box out here,
okay,
like check for
this
the
way,
drop box.
okay.
But you are having control court, right?
Yes, sir, we did.
Okay.
Courts are open and running.
All right, any other questions for Chief Earl this evening?
No.
Thanks, sir.
Sir.
All right, next department would be Finance and Admin, Ms. Bullard.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Well,
I want to tell you that we have had the medical insurance staff meetings for all of the employees. Those were all held between the 4th and the 6th of August. The employees applying for medical insurance were successfully uploaded on the state portal as of August 14th. The state's medical plan is to become effective to the employees September 1st. Audit contracts with Whitburn accounting firm of Lewisburg has been signed and filed with Comptroller's office. And Oakland has received its share of the governor's local support grant in the amount of $209,000.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bullard. Any questions for Ms. Bullard this evening? All right, thank you. Next, we go into reports and discussion from the board. First item is live stream equipment. Vice Mayor Sutton.
Y'all, thank you for getting that up and running. I understand that it's working as we speak.
Okay.
I would like for you to fulfill the request for more than one person to be trained on getting that going in case it's an event where you can't be here. I know we asked to be here when they come to figure it out, and I just want to make sure that we can still have opportunity to be trained on this system.
Certainly. I've got it documented on how to operate it, which is relatively easy, but I will make sure the staff is aware, and we can either have a training session or I can provide that to the board, whatever your preference is.
If any way possible, look at the manual.
I'm sorry?
If any way possible, we look at the manual.
It's online. I can send you the equipment, which there's 3 pieces of equipment that make up the system. And we're streaming through YouTube, so there's multiple pieces. It's not just one manual, but I'll be glad to email you the equipment and then let you review it with no problem at all.
Sound good.
Okay. Anything else on streaming? All right. Next item is the Main Street lease, and I just put this on here. I want the board to be aware that the tenant that we've got in the Main Street property is in the process of selling their business. The person that's buying it is an employee, and so coming in front of this board at our next meeting will be the request to terminate the lease and to provide a lease to the new owner if the board sees fit to continue with having a tenant in that building. So just want to make that aware. Okay.
So we're moving on our schedule.
I'm sorry, sir?
It's moving on our schedule.
Yes, sir.
That's next, Mr. Duncan.
Next item is, unless there's questions on that, would be new office space. Mr. Cates?
Yeah, where do we stand on getting that moved over there? We've been fighting this over a year now.
Well, I actually talked to the engineer yesterday, and we're expecting the specs to be completed for the repairs and replacement. There's one area we'll replace. The rest will be repaired on the roof. Once that's done, we'll be ready to start construction. So I am going to ask the board that we have a workshop soon, so that a workshop before that we bid out the roof, so that once the roof is completed, we can have the specs for the renovations done and have those bid out so they can start as soon as that job is complete.
Can we set a goal for ourselves on when we need to be over there, or when we can be over there?
Well, I believe it's contingent on getting everything done and repaired, because we've got to have the roof stop leaking. We've got to renovate the inside of it, including getting cable and the servers moved over. I would suggest once we start the construction, or at least bid that out and understand the dates around that, it would be much easier to set a move date.
I just don't understand why it's took over a year to do this. I've been so confused over this, because this has been brought up I don't know how many times, and we're still no closer to moving than we were last year.
Okay, well, and again, there's been a number of things, but I can appreciate your comments. Anything else on the new office space? Okay, next item is downtown property agreement. Mr. Sutton?
Yeah, the board voted to approve to try to enter into a contract with the property owner for us to maintain that property. If we had use of it, that could be terminated at any time. This was several months ago. Where do we stand on this?
I believe it was last month, a month before, I reported to the board that the property owner was actually was in negotiations to lease out those buildings, including the pad on the end and the gym, which would include the grass property. And until there's a decision made on that, he really didn't want to discuss anything any further with me. Now, I've not talked to him since our last meeting, but I will follow up with him and see if there's been decisions made. I know that the person that was negotiating with him had some things that they were changing from a job perspective, and I don't know where that's at. So I've not talked to the property owner in 30 days.
This property is as poorly maintained as any in Oakland. And so, have we took appropriate actions and sent them letters on their high grass and things like that? I mean, that's the whole purpose of us maintaining it, so we'll have use of it, so we can make that downtown area more appealing. We're gonna have our town hall up there. There's gonna be some things happening evidently if people are leasing those buildings, but we need that property maintained. And if negotiations ain't going too well, I would like to have permission for the board, to meet with the property owners about this. And so maybe we open up negotiations with them, but we need to have that area looking a lot better than what it does now.
I don't think we were actually talking about all that grass over there by the gym, were we? We were
No,
talking
I was
about the
talking
front
about
right here where our sign is.
The sign and the pad where the mayor was talking about,
Right.
that somebody was gonna lease that pad.
I'll be glad to follow up with them next week and report to the board.
Was that a phone call or email, or what communication did y'all have there?
Telephone or cell phone communication.
Who did you talk to about that?
I'm sorry?
Under Tom?
I did speak to Mr. Tomlin, yes.
Which one?
To Mr. Gordon.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next item is final paving of streets on Somerset and Hidden Springs. Mr. Cates?
Yeah, I saw where we opened the bids the other day. Those two streets are on the list, right?
Correct.
You don't have any time limit of when they're gonna start, do you?
Has to come before the board for approval, and we'll award the contract, and that's how it works. We'll set the date.
Are we gonna have a start-finish date this year on these things?
Yes, sir. Laurel Street was on there also.
Merle Street was the +1 though, right? It was bid without Merle Street, and then it was bid with Merle Street, is that correct?
The base bid was included Merle, the deductive alternate was to remove Merle.
You did what, I'm sorry?
The base bid included Merle Street. We added a deductive alternate where we could, if the board chooses so, remove Merle Street from there, to save money, to lower the cost, overall cost.
So we are gonna use some recycled asphalt this time, right?
There is a percentage that was in the bid for
Right.
a certain percentage of recycling.
Right.
Yes, it was in the specs, yes.
So let me ask you a question. Since we underestimated the cost of that paving in our budget, would we have to rebid that if we diminish that?
No, sir. Deductive alternate is a standard procedure.
Well, I'm not talking about the one deductive alternate,
Okay,
because
you make
both
more.
of them were higher than what we put in the budget. We didn't budget but about 700,000 is what my recollection of it is. But my question is, if we have to have more deductive alternates, would we have to rebid it, or could we deduct what they bid on those projects off of it and do the rest?
To be honest, I would defer to Attorney Minor on that, I would not know.
Typically, the companies bidding need to know what kind of deductible alternates they need to include in their bids.
So if we decided that we didn't have the money to pave all of this, we would have to put it out for bid again. Because that could possibly put more players. I know somebody that usually does paving here didn't bid it because their bond wasn't big enough for the amount. And so that would put more players in the game for bidding if we had to. I'd like to see every street paved. But if we don't have the funds to pay for it, I don't know how we're gonna do it.
And again, I would suggest the board have a workshop, because this item is not on the agenda to discuss funding, and I've got some recommendations where some potential funding could come from in order to make up that difference, unless the board just doesn't want to put any more in that maintenance for this year. But we'll work through Ms. Bullard's emails and get that workshop and special meeting scheduled. Okay, anything else on paving? Next is final paving of Fair Meadows. Vice Mayor Sutton?
Yeah, I asked this question and we were gonna find out. I never received an answer if the final code had been put on, Fair Meadows.
Yes, sir, it has. Make sure it's clear, right behind Kroger, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I tried to research dates and this paperwork, I had no luck finding anything. I asked an engineer to research, he had no luck, but it was well over 10 years ago, the final code was put
Well,
on there.
the last few houses wasn't finished, so they put it on before it was complete.
Evidently, but we didn't have any records, either one of us had records, so he made some assumptions, I'm not gonna repeat assumptions in a meeting, but, the final code.
But it don't look like the thickness reaches the concrete like most of them do on final paving.
I believe, and I'm not 100% sure, but I've had a lot of conversations since then, I believe he did say he had record of core samples on that area, but not 100% on that. I can find out if he had record of core samples, if that would,
Okay, thank you.
yes, sir.
Also, if you could get with, code enforcement to find out when the last house was built over there, I'd like to have that information.
Yes, sir.
And if at all possible, if it can't be found out before our next monthly meeting, just some communication about it would be nice.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next is pavement of new streets cracking. Alderman Cates?
I think that goes back to Vice Mayor Sutton. I don't know, I might have turned that in, but he knows more about that than I do. He went and looked at it.
Yeah, Rolling Oaks Drive, and I did meet with Mr. Ellis out there, and he was gonna get with the engineer. What do we find out? Because that pavement is probably less than 6 months old.
I spoke with the company that put that in, as late as 2 o'clock today. He's already moved some equipment in there. He's gonna mill that area out and overlay it with new pavement.
Did we check all other areas that they paved to make sure the same thing ain't occurring on the
I
other
looked at
ones?
most of them, I'm gonna go back and double check, but while he's there, it's still under warranty, he needs to fix it.
I've got that on my to-do list,
Yes,
that I'm gonna ride and check them, so.
okay.
Okay. Continuing on, Twin Oaks subdivision, Alderman Cates?
Yeah, I see we got a resolution for that tonight, right?
We do have an ordinance, yes, sir, 2010.
Thank you.
Okay. Grass cutting, Alderman Cates?
Yeah, what are we finding out about still cutting some of these? I had it, I guess on right of ways, Harvey, where do we know exactly how far to cut or how much not to cut?
Yes, sir, I thought I emailed that to the
I
board.
did, I saw it, but I saw where you're cutting maybe narrow on some and wide on the other, is the reason I'm asking.
Yes, sir, the right of way varies depending on the street and the subdivision, so,
From start to finish?
you know, it starts with right of way from the center of the road, maybe 50 feet, if it is 25 from the center of the road, it's like 25 this way, some have 30 foot right of way, some have.
But if it's a straight street down through there, then it should be the same on the end as it is on the start, right?
Not necessarily, no, some much wider at the entrance, some,
I'm saying, if it's, once you get down started where the street's the same,
yes, should be the same way, so, yes.
you probably
Yeah,
need to
particular
check.
area you're concerned about?
No, I was just, when I'm riding around, I just saw some that looked like it was cut long, some short, and in and out. I saw a couple places where maybe they could have made just a half a swipe and been up to some trees. Made it look a lot better instead of where we cut to that trees. It's, I think, what subdivision was that? Down behind Loving Bakery somewhere?
Oakland Woods is pretty obvious.
Right.
In some of these properties, because for some time we had cut a lot more than we've been instructed to cut now. And so we are communicating with the adjacent property owner that they need to start cutting. And the one that was just mentioned is one that we're communicating with that property owner to extend what he's mowing, since we're no longer mowing past the right of way. All right, next item is unmowed property. Vice Mayor Sutton.
Yes, I just think that we need to consider some legislation. It shouldn't take, I mean, Mr. Quinn said 5 days for the first letter, and then 5 days for another, that's 10, and then 13 days excluding weekends and holidays, so that could possibly be 17 days, 27 days, and once, we're not even sending them a letter until it gets out of control, so we're giving it, almost another month to get that much more out of control. And I just wanna ask the attorney, what can we do as a board that we don't have to go through that process? We don't have to give them all that time before we go in there and cut it and send them a bill.
You don't have to amend your ordinance. You got an ordinance that requires 10 days notice excluding Saturday and Sundays and legal holidays. I don't think that the 5 days, that's just kind of a partisan practice, is that right?
Departmentally, that's what we do.
It's a procedure in the department.
But now, by ordinance, the town is required to give 10 days notice, which the statute doesn't require that the weekends be excluded. It's worded a little bit different, but still, you're right. I mean, it can run 13, 14 days.
So it's 10 days, not 13 days excluding.
Well, it's 10 days excluding Saturdays and Sundays, and then if it goes out by U.S. first class mail, then you're required to add an additional 3 days to that, and that would exclude Sundays.
So we could direct them to do away with the courtesy, go by the ordinance we have on the books,
Right.
and not use the U.S. Postal Service, and we can get this done in 10 days. Adding 3 for weekends and holidays, at the most 13 days.
Right. The statute does require that the postal service be used. Now, that's not in our ordinance, but it is in the statute.
So the statute says you must, so you do have to give, so it's not an if, and buts. I don't understand why they would say, if you use it, you gotta allow 3 more days.
Well, the statute gives you the choice to use certified or first class. First class, you add 3 days. Certified can sometimes run much longer than that, so I always advise my town clients to do both and see which one, if the certified mail doesn't get signed for 5, 6, 7 days, you don't have to use that. You can rely on your first class by just adding the 3 days.
Well, I think we ought to take the advice of our council. I think we need to send these letters out first class and then certified mail and see which one works out the best for us. But, I mean, it's taking too long to get this stuff cleaned up.
But I brought this up once before. The same people own this property year after year. So why couldn't they set up a cutting date, like once a month or once every 5 weeks or something, and not take their time up to ride around and look at it?
We actually, that was part of our conference call on Tuesday to streamline this process more. And Greg and Walter have come up with a plan to get those letters out quicker.
But I'm just saying, why can't they automatically cut them from spring to fall every so often without taking up their time to go look?
Town cutting it?
No, the owners cut it. On Mac Edwards up there, I don't think y'all have had a call up there in probably 2 years. They cut theirs about every 4 weeks, regular.
Well, you would like all property owners to do that.
But why can't we,
That would be an ideal.
why couldn't we pass that for them to do that?
Well, they are required by law to do that. They're required by law to maintain their property.
But why would we have to go and give them all this time when they could do it automatic every 4 to 5
I
weeks?
think what Mr. Cates is referring to is, so let's say that we have old Joe. Old Joe didn't cut it, so we send him the letter, tell him, hey, if you don't cut this, we're gonna mow it and send you a bill. Okay, so we do that. He don't cut it, we mow it, send him a bill. Then next 2 months, here we go again, same thing, old Joe. Do we have, once we notify him that he needs to keep his grass cut, or we're gonna mow it, do we have to do it every time he's in violation?
Yes.
And that's by state statute.
Yes, every time that the grass becomes overgrown, you got to send that property owner notice and give that property owner 10 days to cut. Once you do that, and the reason that it's a part of due process, once you give that notice, not only can you cut the grass and charge that property owner for it, but you can lien the property and sue them in general sessions court. So it's a part of the due process that the notice is required. So yes, that was a question that also came up in our call-on visit.
So-
A letter has to go out each time.
So if our ordinance says 10 days, 3 days for the postal service, does the board wanna continue to allow a couple of courtesy letters go out before we ever send that letter?
I think one letter ought to just tell it all. From the first letter you sent, they got 10 to 13 days to cut it, and we go cut it and charge them.
I'm in agreement with that, and since it's not an ordinance or a resolution, if we're just gonna go by the ordinance we have on the books, all we need to do is instruct Mr. Owens not to send out these courtesy letters and give them another 10 days not to do anything.
We're not sending out a courtesy letter, we're go out and leave a notice of non-compliance.
Can we bypass that?
After we've left 2 notices of non-compliance, then we send them the letter about if upon receipt, you have to cut the grass, or the city will cut it at your expense.
It was my understanding that council said we could go ahead and give them the 10-day, the notice from the start.
Right. I mean, code has their procedures, but as far as the legal requirements, a 10-day letter is all that is required once the grass is overgrown.
So they could go out there the first time and give them that notice, code compliance, you have 10 days to get this grass cut?
Yes, so if the property is owner occupied, you can actually take the notice and bypass the mailing requirement and post the letter on the door if it's a residence. If the property is vacant or it's not owner occupied, then you've got to use the postal service.
Now, do they have, if you use a certified letter and they don't receive that for 10 days, do they have 10 additional days to get it cut from the date they receive that letter?
They have 10 days from the date of receipt, that's what the statute says.
Okay, so now we're
That's for
looking
the
at,
3 days.
now we're looking at possible 30 or 40 days if we don't do that. So I think what I'd like to see is us not give the 5 days if that ain't what statute, for whatever is legal by our statute, start enforcing what's on the books, not the policies and procedures or the normal practice we've been using, to actually put stiffer penalties on this and get it done. Is the rest of the board in agreement with that?
I would like to know what overgrown, how is that determined?
12 inches, right?
What height? One person's
Pretty
opinion.
sure it's 12 inches.
12
Okay.
inches,
It's,
right?
it's stated in the order.
Okay, but can we change that at a local level so we can speed the process up?
I can look into that.
So if we just say we did 10 inches, that would speed the process up.
Yeah,
We'd
but
get
then
out
you,
there a lot quicker.
then you'd be going against the homeowners, as they'd have to keep theirs cut at 10 inches too.
10 inches is pretty high. That's taller than Frank.
Do y'all allow commentary after the protocol? I apologize.
We typically don't at this point, sir, I apologize. I'd be glad to speak with you afterwards, though, and pass your information forward.
Me
And I
too.
had the opportunity, I would have just said for those that are repeat offenders, you increase the cost of them. So,
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
but thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, and, you know, part of the whole process is to make sure that we're not getting in the grass cutting business, so we
Well,
charge a premium price. I mean, there is a limit of how much we can charge, because if there is litigation or due
It's funny you
process.
said that. I was just finna bring that up, Mayor, that we need to check on a contract with an independent agency to have them bound to cut that grass where we don't have to waste our manpower. And so we need an hourly quote, and then we, of course, we'll have a processing fee, but they'll pay our processing fee plus the hourly quote. And we won't even fool with it with our mowers. We'll hire it done, and they can pay them, like they should be doing anyway if they can't get down here to cut it. Because some of them are in New York. I mean, they're not gonna drive a lawnmower down there and cut it. They need to hire somebody to cut it.
I have 2 contractors I'm scheduled to meet with next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're prepared to move forward. Next item is cutting of town right-of-ways.
I just discussed that with Mr. Harvey a while ago.
Okay, just want to make sure. The next would be easements, Vice Mayor Sutton.
Yes, and it's a couple of things. Number one, I spoke with you about some of the easements that we hadn't been maintained. I know on the new easement that we got, the man already had one easement across from him. He was very dissatisfied that it wasn't maintained, and he demanded that this easement be maintained properly. I understand we may need some equipment for that, to do that. So I tasked you with getting that piece of equipment we need for the skid steer to where we can maintain them. But also I've got a more difficult question. And I'll use my neighborhood as an example. There's a corner lot there that backs up to the pond. In this man's yard, the town asked them, could they put a sidewalk through his yard to the park? And then there's a little parking lot there. They repaved the walking track, but they didn't maintain that. Is that considered an easement across that man's property if we are allowing people to go through his yard to get to the park on this asphalt?
Yes, easement will be required to do that, yes, if that's the case.
I mean,
I'd have to look it up.
if there's an easement, it should be filed with the, recorded with.
I don't know that particular area.
Is Mr. Pate?
Yes,
Are you aware of what I'm talking about?
in generality, sir. But that pond was developed before that subdivision, so it was separated all together.
Well, I'm not asking about the pond, I'm asking about the walking track through this man's yard to get to the pond. Now, his fence and the wall is actually on his property as well. You can't see them because we didn't maintain them trees, and they just growed up everywhere, and they're growing over the man's property
That
on the
would have
backside.
probably been through easement, because I don't recall seeing it on the plat.
He called me and I said, who planted the trees, you or the town? He said, the town planted them. But y'all may not know it, but on Northwoods Estates, there's 2 brick walls on both sides of that subdivision, but you can't see either one of them because it hadn't been maintained and cut. So they also, he said there was also an agreement, and we may have to go back on the books and look at this agreement and things because he don't have a copy. But he said their agreement was to paint that brick wall on his side. So he's been looking at an unsightly wall.
That's a private improvement or a public improvement?
You know, I don't know. I'm just trying to take care of my constituents when they have a problem. And the problem here is that we paved that walking trail, but we didn't pave that parking lot, and we didn't pave that sidewalk that everybody's using to get to that park, through that man's yard. And I was just wondering why we didn't do that.
Again, that subdivision was separated from, and the park was, if I might say, an afterthought. I don't know, you know, if that was discussed by the planning commission or whatever, so. I was with the state then, so.
I hope we've taken our last retention pond in as town property is what I hope.
Well, that was a definite break-in policy while I was with the state, that drainage was presumably, private. I can't remember the year, but I know roughly when it started.
So if a detention pond is on a property that's not developed, is that private?
Now, again, sir, sometimes they were dedicated as parkland or open space or whatever, and I wasn't involved in the day-to-day, so.
So let me get this straight, because I've had a call about this. So let's take the property beside Kroger,
Can we talk in
east,
generality?
east of Kroger. The
Okay.
property east of Kroger, because it's a road on the other side. You know, there's no property there. So east of Kroger, there's a lot, it's got a road running through it, and it looks like they've done some curb and.
That's a driveway. I do know that.
Okay, a driveway. If there's a retention pond on that property, is that private?
It was never subdivided, so I feel like it's private.
So that man could diminish the size of that retention pond.
Again, I don't know that it was ever dedicated, it may be being used as a retention.
Can you
pond.
check on that and get back with me?
I feel real comfortable about that plat expired and was never recorded.
So he can do anything he wants to with it.
Well, I mean, right
No,
now,
he
it's one
can't.
commercial lot. So if he tried to do something relative to zoning, he would have to get a site plan review and go through the plan commission.
That's
I'm
moving the
talking
waterway
about-
too.
I'm talking about
Moving
the
waterways
retention
too.
pond is private.
Again, sir, I don't know that it was ever recorded. It may be just somebody's ditch or something that's holding water.
Excuse me, I see Attorney Minor shaking his head, so if I could ask legal opinion if you have one, I mean,
You can't do anything because it's
if
a
there's
waterway.
water drainage through it, I mean, there are state requirements and all not to redirect water flow.
Well, I'm just saying, Chris is right, if the property's gonna be subdivided, it's gonna have to go back for
Okay.
planning and go through the entire process for the town to approve it.
Okay. Just want to make sure that's what you were acknowledging, so I didn't want to miss something along the.
Well, thank you.
Could I ask you something, Mr. Ellis, real quick, and it's on the same line? You're talking about you need a special machinery to do these easements. Are you talking about something to fit on the front of your backhoe?
No, sir, on the front of the skid steer, a brush cutter on the front of the skid steer.
Yeah, we got one on front of a backhoe, a bobcat.
Yes, that's what I'm looking at, yes.
We cut trees that big around that
Yes.
thing.
I've got 2 of my 3 new quotes already, so that's.
Okay.
That, one of the easements that I know is bad, what's that street over there where Mr. Nanny and them live, where that blacktop is messed up?
Yes.
That easement that goes down?
Yes, that's exactly one of the places we're looking at, and around the perimeter, one of the other signature properties we're talking about, the perimeter of the existing subdivisions. I'm sure there are washes out there, and it would be foolish to put a tractor with a backhoe out there until we get it down and see the condition, and the skid steer is much more user-friendly for that, so. And then we have an easement, force main all the way to the river, down 194.
Are you getting some estimates on that piece of machine?
I've got 2 of the 3 quotes already.
Okay.
Okay.
They work. They work.
We had a loaner, a demo, they gave us a demo, and I was impressed.
It definitely works.
We prepared to move forward?
Yes, sir.
All right, next is Town Manager, Vice Mayor Sutton.
Yes, I just wanted to inform everyone that we did do the interviews. We hired MTAS to do the search. We had applicants from all over the United States, from the East Coast to the West Coast and South and North. And MTAS chose a short list of 3. One of them took another job before we interviewed him, and we interviewed the other 2 this week. And I didn't know if it was appropriate as a discussion item, so I added it to the agenda. Just wondering if it's appropriate now to consult the board, if they're prepared to make a decision on hiring a town manager, or should we wait to the addended agenda?
I think the discussions is just a matter,
That's all right, you got it on the
do you want to bring
bottom.
it up and vote at this point or not? I mean, and they're both agenda items that address Town Manager.
You got it on the bottom,
Is
you wait.
is everyone on the board prepared to make a decision on this?
I am.
Mr. Duncan? Mr. Rector?
Oh, yeah.
Mayor?
Well, I'm following your lead, the board's lead since I don't have a vote. My only thing is I know we need to move forward with this, but I do like face-to-face interviews. But if the board's prepared to move forward, I most definitely will not stand in the way.
I'm prepared to move on with it.
Me too. I make a motion that we make the effort to hire Mr. Jay Johnson to be our town manager administrator, and that Attorney Minor try to have the ability to enter into a contract with this gentleman.
So can I clarify your motion, Vice Mayor Sutton?
You can.
Now, you're saying for the mayor to negotiate with Mr. Johnson to hire, and if we come to that point, then at that time, Attorney Minor would get involved with an employment contract, or are you asking Attorney Minor to negotiate with Mr. Johnson from phone call to?
Yeah, my motion is on the floor for Mr. Minor to do the negotiation of the contract.
Okay, so I've got a motion to hire Jay Johnson and for Attorney Minor to negotiate and do a contract with Mr. Johnson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Cates. Any other discussion necessary? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Attorney Minor will forward you his information, and if
With that being said, we need to give Mr. Minor some direction on when the start date would be and when we'd like for him to attempt to call this guy. Anybody?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible. When do you feel like you can get a hold of Mr. Johnson to start negotiating a contract with him?
I can probably, if I have contact information, I can reach out tomorrow.
We have
We
the
got that.
interview that we done on Thursday night.
Monday.
Was it?
Yeah,
Monday night?
Monday evening, yes.
Monday night. All right. For you to review.
Mr. Minor, I'll forward you his contact information, his resume that has his contact information, and so the board's wishes are to start as soon as possible, and I'm sure it's going to depend on Mr. Johnson's ability to be here as well. Now, we'll remind the board as far as where he'll work, equipment he'll work with. There's a lot that has to be done as well,
Correct.
as far as, computers and that sort of thing, and even where he's going to be housed, but
Well, he'll probably need to share your office with, to kind of co-mingle until he gets acclimated. That's a big office.
we'll, just reminding the board, their equipment and things will have to be purchased, so.
And this process can take a couple of meetings because I would present an initial contract to the board would discuss it and probably decide to make some revisions. It would go back to Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir.
There have to be a resolution
Maybe
to,
a special call meeting to approve a final draft. But
This board's been pretty good about meeting whenever we needed to. We were hoping to have this guy in place, September 1st.
okay. All right, we're prepared to move forward. Next is the accounting invoice. Vice Mayor Sutton?
Yes, on this invoice, did we get a final bill, contract signed with him?
You talking about the final invoice? Is that what you're asking?
Right.
Are we talking about Prop Gap?
Yes.
Yes. That amount was $2,666.
How much?
$2,666.
Do you know the amount, the total that we paid Mr. Gabb?
I can check on that.
Can-
Not off the top of my head, I think.
Can you send an email on that?
Certainly.
And just for the record, Mr. Gabb was hired without permission from the board. The mayor hired Mr. Gabb to help Ms. Bullard on audits. The board refused to pay these invoices for quite some time, and then the board agreed to pay Mr. Gabb for his work contingent upon the fact that we could seek restitution from the mayor for the charges. And so we'll need that amount before we can do that. So I'd appreciate any email correspondence on that, please.
Would you mail it to all of us?
I'm sorry?
Would you send it to all of us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're prepared to move forward. Anything else on accounting invoice? All right, next are copy machine invoice. Vice Mayor Sutton?
Yes, the copy machine invoices, we discussed them earlier today. We're still getting billed for the copy machines. How long has it been since we used those copy machines?
To say April.
April of
March
last year.
30th was the last day that we used them.
So we're still receiving bills. We've got another set of copy machines that we're actually using. This is another contract that the mayor entered into without approval from the board. Anytime that there are multiple contracts, multiple year contracts let, the board has to approve them for their pay. We refused to pay these invoices for several months, and then we agreed to pay them as long as we could seek restitution against the mayor for the money that he cost the town, and that we had a final bill of approval releasing us from any further payments. We got neither of those handed to us, so that's why we're still getting the bill. That's all I got on that tonight.
Okay. Next is follow-up on Oakland exit signs on 269 through 85. Alderman Cates?
Yeah, did you make that phone call?
I did call, I left a message, and not been able to talk to him. To be honest, I left 2 calls, and I've not followed up since then.
Can one of us call him?
You're more than welcome to. All right. Next item is fireworks. Vice Mayor Sutton?
Yeah, we'll go back to the minutes from our regularly scheduled meeting. Firework ordinance, Vice Mayor requested amending the current ordinance to prohibit fireworks from being shot onto another's property, setting a limit on the length of time the tents can remain standing after firework events, and restriction in the number of fireworks to be stored in a home or on a residential property. I guess I requested, I guess I want to know where it's at.
That update has not been made yet. We've got a few months before the next fireworks season, and workload, it's just been prioritized down below other items. We've not forgotten it. It's just limited staff, so we get done what we can.
I just don't want to kick the can down the road until we see that have the same problem over and over and over again. I mean, if we allow people to, if that's not in our ordinance and it's standard on MTS advising for that to be in there, and then somebody gets hurt, you know, on the new year because we're allowing people to shoot fireworks on somebody else's property, then we know there's a danger, we know it's been recommended, and we don't want to keep putting this stuff off. We want to make it as safe as possible for our citizens. We don't need people worrying about whether their pastures are going to be set on fire and their animals burned up and things of that nature. So, you know, if Mr. Minor advised us tonight that if we asked for something and a department head didn't do it, then that could be grounds for this board to ask for disciplinary procedures. So, you know, I've stressed this with the department heads that we govern as a board, and that includes everybody you see sitting up here. The entire board is how we govern. And if we ask for something, it needs to be on the table, or at least some communication where I don't wonder where this is at and have to bring it up in a meeting a month later. It shouldn't. I know we're busy. But this board governs, and it's hard to govern without communication. So I urge the department heads to take the advice from Mr. Minor that you can be disciplined by this board if you don't follow through with what's been asked of y'all. And I just want that to be clear, because I'm tired of stuff not getting done that we as a board pass. I'm finna start making some motions on what happens if it don't. So let's get this stuff done that we asked for.
Vice Mayor, I don't see that we can have this on the agenda till October, but I will commit to having it on the agenda in October, which will give us October, November, and then that'll be plenty of time before the next fireworks season, which is January 1st in that time frame.
Do you write the ordinances?
I at times assist. Ms. Bullard writes them for the most part with assistance from
I'm
Attorney Minor.
expecting Ms. Bullard to get this, and she can tell me how long it's gonna take us. I don't expect you to write the ordinance. I don't think you've wrote one since I've been here.
Vice Mayor, no disrespect, but I am still, until the city manager is in, I still am in charge of the day-to-day operation. Things have to be prioritized. There is business that goes on. It's no disrespect to this board. You wanted a specific time, I tried to give it to you. If October's not good, then we'll have to determine something that is a higher priority and put it to the side in order to do it sooner.
Well, I got a question for you. Since you made that remark, why we keep getting 4 or 5 things on the agenda every month that's not getting done if you're so much in charge of day-to-day operations?
Again,
With just out of respect to you, I'd like an answer to that.
well, I'm talking about this fireworks right now, sir.
I think that I want advice
But
from
it's a lot
county
of it.
council at this point. I received this earlier, and I'm pretty sure that he said if this board passed something and the department head didn't follow through with it, that it was the board's responsibility to discipline the department heads. Is that correct, Mr. Minor? Did I get lost somewhere?
The board has the right to discipline department heads if the board requests things of department heads and those requested items are not provided.
Well, see, I wasn't lost. So, Mayor, you don't actually handle all the day-to-day operations. If this board tells a department head to do something, now, we've been lenient because we know you're telling them things, and they're put in between a rock and a hard place. So we've been lenient with these employees because we've done that. Because we know you're the one not getting it done, and it's not their fault. But I'm cautioning them right now that this board is who they work for, which includes you. I'm not excluding you from the board. It includes you. But you do not handle the day-to-day operations. This board governs. This board is in charge of the department heads. And if they don't do what the board asks of them, this board can take disciplinary action against you. And what I'm telling you is I'm going to make some motions to do it if this stuff don't get done that we're asking for.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I have not asked you a question. By Robert's Rule of Order, this is discussion. And you don't talk unless somebody asks you a question.
Well, if we're going to follow Robert's Rule of Order, we're way past because it states it's 2 minutes per board member, and then we're finished. All I was going to say, if you're going to go to that level, you need to be specific. When you made that statement last month, there was nothing specific about it being on the agenda this month. I gave you a date. If that's not good enough, then please be specific.
We don't
We'll
ask
manage
for
what we have
stuff
to.
we don't want done. If we
Nobody
ask
said it's
for
not
it
gonna
and
be
we take
done.
a vote to be done, then we want it
Okay,
done.
can we move forward? If
Well, it's
October's
easy
not
to move
good,
forward when we're talking about copy machines that the contract was signed in April of 18.
Vice
They're
Mayor
sitting out there in
Sutton,
the hall.
please, sir, let's be professional now. If October's not a good date, let us know. Let Ms. Bullard know, and we'll manage it correctly. If October's okay, then please confirm, and we'll move forward. The hour's getting late, and we've got a long agenda still.
If Miss Bullard tells me that she don't have time to write an ordinance in the month of September, then I'm good with October. But I need to hear that from Miss Bullard. I don't need you speaking for her. Miss Bullard, is there any way possible to get an ordinance in September, or do we need to wait till October?
I can put it together and get it to, legal to review in September.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item is home business. Vice Mayor Sutton.
Yes, and I know we've talked about this before too, and the question is who monitors, once we say, okay, you have the right to a home business, who makes sure that they're compliant to no traffic in the neighborhoods, no employees at that house, and things of that nature? What department is in charge of making sure that they comply as being accepted as a home business?
That would fall under code enforcement.
I need to look at my watch, got 2 minutes. So, on this question, we have some care facilities operating in our neighborhoods that I still don't know if they got approved to operate in the neighborhoods. There's one in particular that has 4 people working during a shift. They run 3 shifts. They have 4 vehicles plus a transportation van in the driveway, 3 garbage cans out there, and the ambulance and fire trucks have been there 4 times in the past few months. So, if this was passed to be a home business, I'd like to know about it.
Are you talking about, handicap homes?
Yes, sir.
Those are under state and federal law.
Okay.
We have no authority whatsoever.
No authority. So somebody can put one anywhere, anytime.
Well, there's conditions under state law.
What are some of the conditions?
The number of employees, the number of staff, the conditions of the residents.
It can be in any residential section in Oakland, right?
The best I know, sir. They did change the law about 2 years ago about the number of employees. And that may have been a federal law as well. They all start to run together on it.
Well, I certainly ain't wanting to kick anybody out in the cold. What I'm trying to wonder is what those regulations are. And if they, cause I can pull up my cell phone, I'm not just talking. Right before this meeting, I had 2 people contact me about where this nursing home was going, when in a development. I've had that contacted, when all essence, we've got care facilities right now in our neighborhoods that the ambulances and fire trucks are having to respond to. And what you're telling me is there's nothing we can do to prevent that. That federal and state law says that they can put a care facility in any residential neighborhood anywhere they want to.
I suspect we could get documentation that they can conform to the state statute and the federal statute.
Would you send that to us in writing?
What's that, sir?
How many employees they're allowed and where they're allowed at?
I could just send you the law.
But you said that the law said there's only allowed so many employees, right?
Yes, sir.
Said, I'm asking you, can you send that to us without having to read the whole law about it?
I can send you the law.
Send it to us.
Anything else on home business?
Well, I'd like to know who enforces it. If they say that they're gonna set up and they're gonna sell Avon, the only thing that's gonna happen is the Avon's gonna be delivered to their house. And then you got people coming over picking up Avon. Who makes sure that there's no traffic or no businesses on them home businesses? Who does that?
It would fall under code enforcement.
What part? Whose job would that be?
Well, one of the code enforcement officers. I mean,
Well,
we've got
how
building.
How many code enforcement officers have we got that do that job?
We've got 1.5. We've got 1 full-time and 1 part-time.
Who are they?
Mr. Quinn is one of the code enforcement officers, and there's a part-time officer. I can't remember his last name. Sam would be the other.
Okay.
And you know, you've got to look at workload and balance. If someone reports it from a home business, they go out and check it. They do what checking they can, but we're actually right now looking at the budget and the possibility of bringing on another code enforcement officer, which of course would have to come to the board, would have to be budget amendment in order to handle that, in order to deal with a couple different issues, which would add some more stability in that department or some more staff to be able to take care of more of that type of thing. So again, this day and time, if I'm not mistaken, practice is if there's a complaint, they go out and look at it. If there's something they see when they're out visually in the neighborhoods, they follow up on it. But as far as taking that list and going neighborhood to neighborhood, I feel pretty confident that's not being done at this time.
So do you think we need a full-time and part-time enforcement?
Mr. Vice Mayor, hope for your concern, this city manager will get these things to your satisfaction.
Thank you, Mr. Dunsett.
And I would just caution the board, even with the city manager, the staff and the load on the staff is not going to change. But hopefully he'll bring something to the board that you're looking for.
I asked you a question. I guess you didn't hear me. Do you think
No,
we need a
excuse me,
full-time and part-time employee to do that?
Well, I think we need actually a full-time building inspector to add to what we're doing, which would take some of the potential administrative things off of the code enforcement office right now and would allow a little bit more flexibility. And that code enforcement officer would serve as building and code from that perspective. So yeah, I think we do need another staff member in that department.
You said
another
home thing? I thought we had 2. I thought Walter and the other guy was both doing
We
the
have
same
2
thing.
code enforcement officers that,
I'm talking
again,
about home inspections.
Mr. Walter didn't say, Mr. Walter said that he only had 1 code enforcement officer, and that was Mr. Sam. Are you out there on?
He's a code compliance officer.
Oh, okay.
So do you go out in the neighborhoods as well, Mr. Quinn?
I do a little bit, but I run the office.
Right, you're not out there doing that.
We have people coming in all day, somebody has to be at the office.
Right, that's right, I understand that. So you wouldn't be out there doing this then? That's what I was asking, is who we got. Obviously, we got 1 part-time man that don't have enough time to do everything. That's the obvious thing, because you're not out there doing that, right? Right, you're
So
running
you just
the
got
office.
a
Mr. Quinn will
part-time
run the
job doing
office and
it.
answer complaints.
And we asked for a full-time employee in that place, but we don't need 2.
Well, Alderman Cates, we will bring the plan and explain it. But in order to do some of the things that the board wants to do in maintaining these construction sites and that sort of thing, we're just gonna have to have more staff in order to do it the level the board wants it kept at. But again, I think that's a subject for a workshop once we have all the data and numbers together, and then the board can make that decision. Next item is insurance. Vice Mayor Sutton.
Yes, and Miss Yvonne, thank you for your information before we started on from the admin side. Glad to see that everybody's getting trained on this insurance. Do wanna let the employees know that the plan that we had last time was January to December. The plan that we currently signed up is January to December, but we didn't find out about this until just a few months ago. And it ran in January. I'm not sure by re-upping if we had to send them any money without the board's approval in January, or if when we re-upped. I'm not sure about that, Mr. Minor. I wish you'd check on that to see if that should have been run by the board before we sent money to an insurance company in January that the board didn't approve, because my understanding it was renewed in January. So I'd like to find out if it was renewed in January, should have the board approved that renewal for the insurance?
Just to clarify, when the board approved the insurance, which was included the healthcare savings plan, that was an annual meaning the town physical budget approval. You know, have no issue with Attorney Minor looking at it, but that's the way it's ran. And so
But
we'll leave.
if the insurance renews in January, shouldn't we have been talking about this in November or December?
The actual policies, until we went to the state plan this year, was July 1st to June 30th. The healthcare savings part of this plan that we were previously on, or we are on until September, is the annual year, the January 1st to December 31st, if I'm not mistaken.
But ain't it true that we had to reload the cards for the employees in January?
That's the healthcare savings part of the medical
So
plan
we loaded them last year, right? And then,
in July.
so if it run annual, if we reloaded them and it run annual, Mayor, should have we had to do that again biannually? If that's the case, you're saying it run annually, then why did we have to renew and reload before that year was up? So in all essence, we give our employees 2 loads on the cards for less than 2 years that they could have already expended. Is that not correct?
At the renewal for 3 months, they had that ability, yes.
So they had the ability to spend 2 years' worth in less than 2 years because it renewed in January. I'm not trying to be difficult here, just trying to understand it where we can get this done. But here's the thing. The fact of the matter is that if it reloads and we're starting to look at renewals in January, that this board should know about it for that renewal. Do you agree?
Well, it was the medical equity, which is which is the healthcare savings plan, which was an add-on to the insurance that the board approved. When you picked that policy, you picked that plan, and it had that information with it. With the state plan, I don't believe we've had any employee that's chosen the high deductible, so there is no healthcare savings plan, which is what was renewed or replenished. It wasn't renewed, it was replenished in January. And that goes away in, 10 days, September 30th.
This board, I'm gonna tell you this, Attorney Mike. This board approved to send that amount of money to that insurance company for the employees to be able to use it on a card. And if they use that card, it deducted from that card, and if it's saved, the town saved that money for what they didn't use, okay? We approved that, but that stopped in December without the board's knowledge. So then the town had to in turn send more money to the insurance company in January. A lot of money. Does anybody know that figure?
Like 46,000.
So I want to know if that 46,000 before we sent that to an insurance company, should have this board approved that? That's what I want to know. And didn't you say if contracts run through multiple budget years, it had to be approved by the board?
Yes.
Yes. So if that's an annual contract, why did we have to renew before a year was up? So I'd like to find out these things.
Okay, and keep in mind too, I believe it was $38,000 refund we got off of what ended in December. They gave us back what we had previously put in, so we got that 38,000 back again. I'll be glad for Attorney Minor to look at it and explain it to him, but
But that was only
Yeah,
last
look
year.
at
the
it.
That was
town
last year's
has not
insurance that was
signed another
retired.
insurance contract until this board voted to allow the state, which is what is be implemented in September 1st.
So you're saying that the only contract we signed for insurance was the one that this board approved, and we did not have to sign anything to re-up and pay this deal month to month like we've been doing?
This was part of the medical plan that the board chose last fiscal year when they chose the high deductible plan and chose the healthcare savings account and to provide that amount.
We're
for-
chasing the rabbit around the bush.
Okay,
My
can-
question is, did we sign anything
No.
to keep this going in January, or we just sent them a check? Did we have a contract, or we just sent them a check? It's
Okay.
automatically renewed.
Vice Mayor, the best thing to do is let Attorney Minor review this and report back to you because we are talking in circles. I'm answering your question, but we're just not hitting the same page. So if it's okay, we'll let Attorney Minor get the information, provide you the response, and we
Ms.
can move
Willard, do you
forward.
know if we had to sign anything or just send them the money?
We just sent the money.
Just sent the money. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is Alderman Duncan, M-Task or Board Education.
Yes, University of Tennessee, have they started back up with classes
No, what they're doing now is everything is online.
online? Thank you.
So we had hire town administrator. I assume since we've done that, there's no need discussing that any further.
That's correct. We'll move that.
Okay. And we'll continue on to old business. First item is a public hearing related to ordinance 20-06. 2006 is an ordinance for updating the official depository of the town funds. Public hearing is open. If any citizen cares to make any comments or have anything to say about this, and basically we're taking the majority of our funds from one bank to another within a branch within the town of Oakland. Floor is open. Okay. Just to move forward, since I don't see a flood of folks standing, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Public hearing's closed. And next item is ordinance 20-06. Have a motion to hear ordinance 20-06, second reading of an ordinance of the town of Oakland changing the official depository of town funds.
Make a motion to hear it.
Motion by Alderman Cates. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Rector. Any discussion necessary?
Are we gonna make our deadline, we said it's September the 1st?
Once this ordinance is approved, we'll start moving those funds over. So yes.
I make a motion to approve
I
ordinance
got a
20-06.
question first. I got a
Okay.
question first. Maybe we need to explain why we're moving that money from one bank to the other and to some of the citizens is not aware of it.
Okay.
Yeah, we had it at another bank and they dropped it to 0.85. We had a variable rate. And another bank in town had offered us a lock rate of 1.6. So in January this year, they dropped the rate, and once the board found out about it, they voted to move that money to get the interest. Of course, with the time it's taking and not paying attention to those rates, from a day-to-day basis, if you're running the town and they drop your rates, you should know that. But it costs you about between $30,000 and $40,000 a month on that amount of money. So there you go.
Okay. So I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Cates. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We'll continue forward. It's all of the old business. Going into new business, ordinance 20-07. I have a motion to hear the first reading of ordinance 20-07, an ordinance of the town of Oakland, amending the zoning map.
Make a motion.
Motion by Vice Mayor Sutton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Cates. Any discussion? Are you prepared to vote? Are you reviewing the ordinance?
What does this consist of in layman's terms?
It's readopting a zoning map.
To do what?
It's readopting a zoning map.
Is this the map up here?
No, it was,
There was a larger copy in my office and there's smaller copies.
we'll have to get it, basically, the zoning map's not been adopted since 1998.
But let me get this straight. You're wanting us to adopt a map that we've never laid eyes on?
Mr. Mayor, maybe I can bring up the 3 changes. One of them, it was a zoning change that was left off between when the last map was readopted and when the newer map was readopted. Then you have a plan development, just to make sure because of COVID that there were no notification issues. And then there was a piece of property where someone's home was rezoned years ago and they wasn't aware of it. And you've since moved the line to, basically it's the north property line of a restaurant and they left the home, or changed the home to residential.
So is that all you changing on it?
Unless y'all change something and it goes back to the planning.
I know you were on the board of zoning and appeals for a while, so. But I wanna know what happens if we don't do this tonight? Is that gonna hold people up?
Well, somebody told me before the meeting that their home was refinanced, kind of based on what they had been told. Again, I won't put words in their mouth. That was my impression of what they said.
The planning commission did recommend this board address this.
I don't have any problem with that. What I have a problem with is you're asking me to approve something that I've never seen.
Mr. King, have you looked at it? You on the plan committee?
I wouldn't, that goes back a long time ago. I was on it from 2004 to 2008 to 2016.
No, Mr. Cates, I think he's meaning, are you on the planning commission now and did you see that zoning?
Yeah.
So did you recommend that we do this, Mr. Gates?
I didn't recommend it. I probably voted for it.
If the board's uncomfortable, I recommend tabling it.
Well, I don't wanna stop anybody that's trying to do. I don't know what.
If that's all that's gonna be changed is those 3 things.
That's the only changes that I know of, sir.
That's okay?
It is for me.
And if y'all have a problem between this reading and the public hearing and the second reading,
Yeah.
y'all can stop at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Cates is good with it. I don't know anything about this zoning stuff, so, and I've never seen it, so, if he's good with it, I'm good with it.
What about you, Harry? You so
I did, and I supported it in planning, and I support it now. Thanks for asking, sir.
We just wanna make sure that's only 3 things that's changed on it.
All right, we prepared to vote? All in favor of accepting the first reading of ordinance 2007, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay.
I would like to encourage that we get a copy of it. I'd love to see it before I pass this in a second reading.
We'll make sure you do. I thought it had been forwarded out. That was my oversight. Next item is ordinance 2008. Can I have a motion to hear the first reading of ordinance 2008, an ordinance of the Town of Oakland related to rezoning notification?
A motion to hear.
I have a motion by Alderman Duncan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Rector. Discussion?
Now, what does this one consist of?
This is recommended by the Planning Commission, and this is the way that a rezoning notification is put out as far as the signs, the mailers. Mr. Pate may be able, can you add just a short synopsis of this?
Yes, sir. Earlier boards had made the notification requirement stricter than state law. It becomes an administrative nightmare for residents when they try to rezone property, and the staff doesn't have GIS to confirm the addresses. So try to streamline the
this is gonna cut government regulations.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 20-08.
So anytime you put red in here, it sticks out. It does. I second.
All right, so I've got a motion by Vice Mayor Sutton to approve, second by Alderman Duncan. All in favor for approving the first reading, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Continuing forward, ordinance 20-09. Have a motion to hear the first reading of ordinance 20-09, an ordinance of the Town of Oakland, adding rest homes, nursing homes, convalescents, assisted living facilities, and elderly congruent living. I cannot talk this time of night. I apologize. Living as a permitted use in B1 and B2 districts.
Make a motion to hear it.
I have a motion by Alderman Cates. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Sutton. Discussion?
This is where they'd have to be in something that's zoned for business.
It would be in B1 and B2 business, yes, sir.
Is this out by 194, 196?
Really, it's attempting to put the focus more along Highway 64 than it is out off of a state road, but
But it's
again,
west,
it depends on
right?
the zoning that's there.
It's out west.
Well,
This is just in
this is a general
it'll be
zoning.
for
This
all
isn't a
of them.
specific.
It'll be in a B1 or B2,
Yeah.
Along Highway 64.
along Highway 64.
Their conditions.
Keeps them from being put in the neighborhoods and things like that.
Make a motion.
Like I say, it actually, if you look at the back
Got a
page,
motion
it
on the
talks
floor.
about it.
Mr. Duncan made a motion.
So I've got a motion to approve by Alderman Duncan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Rector. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Continuing forward. Ordinance 2010, this would be the first reading. If I could have a motion to hear the first reading of ordinance 20-10, an ordinance of the Town of Oakland. Consider the adopting of an updated PD on property situated on the north side of Highway 64 and on the east side of Bowers Road.
Make a motion to hear.
Motion by Alderman Cates. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Sutton. Discussion?
I've got a question here. When you say 31 minutes, 45 seconds east at a distance of 94.96 feet, what is that?
Basically,
That's what the surveyor provided that information to me. That's a bearing on the survey.
Well, what's the minutes and seconds got to do with it?
Again, sir, I'm not a surveyor, so I would defer to them.
it's basically it's the property at the east corner of Bowers Road and Highway 64. This is just a legal description that you're seeing here on the bottom, and they're wanting to rezone it. There was a plan development there. This has altered the original plan development, and as you know, has been through planning as well.
Make a motion to pass it.
I have a motion by Alderman Cates to pass the first reading of 2010. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Rector. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Continuing forward, ordinance 2011. Have a motion to hear the first reading of ordinance 2011, an ordinance of the Town of Oakland to consider the adopting of an updated PD of property situated on the south side of Highway 64 on the west end of Oakland. Now hear a motion.
Make a motion.
Motion by Vice Mayor Sutton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Duncan. Discussion. Again, gentlemen, there's a plan development that's there. I believe it's still valid, but this would just update that plan development to a new plan that's been through planning this last month.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve the first reading of 2011. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Duncan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, continuing forward down the list. Ordinance 2012. Have a motion to hear the first reading of ordinance 2012, an ordinance of the Town of Oakland to consider municipal zoning of an area being annexed to the current corporate limits, parcel 039 on map 86 of the Fayette County tax map. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion by Vice Mayor Sutton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Cates. Discussion?
you looked at this, Attorney Myers?
I have, yes.
You see anything wrong with it?
No, I've looked at it very closely, and I recommend it.
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance 20-12.
Have a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2012 by Vice Mayor Sutton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Cates. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll continue forward. New business. Next is Resolution 20-51. Do I have a motion to hear Resolution 20-51, a resolution of the Town of Oakland considering the annexation of property adjacent to the town limits, partial -039 on map 86 of the county tax map?
So moved.
A motion by Vice Mayor Sutton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Cates. Discussion?
I make a motion to approve the first reading, resolution 2051.
So I've got a motion to approve Resolution 20-51 by Vice Mayor Sutton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Cates. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, continuing forward. Resolution 20-52. I have a motion to hear Resolution 20-52, a resolution of the Town of Oakland providing the authority to enter to a development contract with Russell Realty Investment.
Motion to hear.
Motion by Alderman Rector. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Sutton. Discussion?
I see, Mr. Russell, you're here for this.
Yes, sir.
Did, you know, we had asked that there would be a disclosure form. Is that in place to where before a house is sold, that they will sign saying they know they're, you know, moving next to a sewage pond?
I'm Louis Ricky, I represent Russell Realty, 2836 Wood Road. I believe the city attorney in y'all's discussions came up with a solution for us to put it on the actual plat. It's gonna be a recorded document for the subdivision, so we did put it on the plat. And so it will be a recorded document that will be in everyone's closing papers.
So they will be aware of it before they close.
I mean, if they read their documents, they'll be aware of it.
A lot of people won't sit down and read all that. Does anybody have any objection to explaining it to them?
The important thing is, it's done in a way, in my opinion, that will protect the town.
Okay. Because I brought this up in the planning commission and also on this board that they should be notified to protect the town from a lawsuit later on.
That's all we can ask for.
So you saying we're covered?
Well, I have not actually seen the actual language on the plat.
It
Plat's
says
now
sewer
been-
lagoon.
Yeah, but the plat's now been recorded.
No, sir.
Well, this is development, so until we get to the final plat, it won't be recorded, but it is.
Yeah, I would just ask that I be allowed to see the plat before it does get recorded.
Well, you gotta approve the as-built plat, subject to.
I don't get involved in that. though.
We will
You
make
have-
sure.
You have my word that it'll be submitted. The as-built plat, after the improvements put in, we'll do the as-built plat, we'll run it by the city attorney for review. And, prior to y'all approving the plat actually being recorded.
Will this come in front, is it come in front of us again before it gets done, right?
Yes.
This is for the
This is it.
development.
This is it.
Vice Mayor, it will come back before you. We have to put the infrastructure in,
Right.
and then we have to submit the as-built plat to you that has to be approved by you and recorded before we.
I'm
can
sorry,
sell
let me
Just say
clarify.
no. Just
Mr.
say
Ritchie,
no.
Mr. Ritchie, hang on, time out. It will go back in front of the planning commission. It will not come back in front of this board.
I'll tell you what I'll do, not to try to hold you up, okay?
Yes.
I will make a motion to approve resolution 2052 based on the fact that Mr. Minor gets a C and contingent upon him approving what you said would be on there.
I agree.
Nothing against your word. I
Oh,
just don't know you, right?
Hey, I would do the same thing if I
All
were
right.
you.
So-
No problem with that.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. So I've got a motion to approve with contingent that the final plat is reviewed by Attorney Minor and approved with the language of the lagoon being on there. I've got that motion by Vice Mayor Sutton. I've got a second by Alderman Cates. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Continue forward. Next would be Resolution 20-54. Have a motion to hear Resolution 20-54, a resolution of the Town of Oakland authorizing the request for proposal for a police department integrated in-car and body cam system.
Make a motion.
We have a motion by Vice Mayor Sutton. Have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Cates. Discussion. I do want to make sure the board is aware, I'm sure you are, and citizens listening. We do have car cameras now, we have body cams, and we have had for a number of years. But this is updating the system so that they're better integrated and the newer technology is more dependable and will be a lot more user-friendly, for lack of a better way to put it. I'm sure Chief Earl or
I make a
Assistant Chief
motion to
Gaines-
approve resolution 20-54.
Have a motion to approve 20-54. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Cates. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item would be the approval of invoices or credit apps. We have invoices tonight. Do I have a motion to consider invoices for payment?
Motion to consider.
A motion by Vice Mayor Sutton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Cates. Discussion?
I make a motion to approve all invoices except Xerox.
Have a motion to approve all but Xerox. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Cates, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to
Oh,
adjourn.
hold it, hold it. You got police, you got some
Oh, I
applications
apologize.
on there.
I've got it right here in front of me. See?
Chief, do you
Y'all
recommend
are
this
paying-
applicant?
Okay, first, we need to open the floor with a motion, and then we'll
Make a
continue
motion to
forward.
consider the hiring of a police
So
officer.
I've got a motion by Vice Mayor Sutton to hire. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Rector.
Actually,
Discussion?
I have him here with me tonight.
Oh, okay.
And currently, he's employed by the Memphis Police Department, 26-year veteran right now. He's assigned to homicide, so he's a sergeant of homicide, he's got his hands full, but he's a wealth of knowledge, so he'll be a big asset to our department.
I make a motion for the chief to be able to hire Ronnie Elrod to the police department.
Second.
Have a motion to hire by Vice Mayor Sutton. We've got a second by Alderman Cates. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome. All right, anything else before we adjourn? Have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Alderman Rector, second by Alderman Duncan. All in favor?
Aye.